On Thursday, April 7th, I ordered the Apple Studio display. I waited just about 4 weeks to get it, and then I decided to cancel my order right before it was supposed to come to my doorstep. I'll tell you why in a minute, but first let me get the pleasantries out of the way. Hello everyone, my name is Amir, and this is Arc Overload. And over the last decade and a half, I've been a loyal Apple user. I came from the PC world and Premiere Pro to switching over to a Mac tower and learning all about Final Cut Pro. I came from the world of Pro Tools and became a hardcore dedicated user of Logic Pro X. I love all the apps that Apple makes, especially the ones in the Apple One bundle. I've bought new and refurbished computers and tablets and phones from Apple directly for years and years and years. 2010 27-inch iMac, 2014 5K iMac Retina, 2015 13-inch MacBook Pro, 2020 M1 Mac Mini, 2021 M1 Max MacBook Pro. That's not including all the phones, tablets, and iPods I purchased, including my personal favorite, the iPod Shuffle, which I used to rock all the freaking time. From cinema displays to iMacs to Thunderbolt displays, I have always used an Apple monitor. I am loyal to this company because I appreciate their consistency, their attention to detail, and their overall quality. Plus, the ecosystem is amazing, and in my opinion, nothing comes close. But even I will admit that Apple sometimes goes a little overboard with its pricing of certain items. And in my opinion, the Studio Display fits in that category. After ordering the display, I made my way to the Apple Store to just take another look at the Studio Display and admire my new purchase before it came to my door. And as I sat there looking at it and examining it and picking it up and feeling how heavy it is or lack thereof and all those sorts of things, I came to the realization that I was having a hard time trying to convince myself that this was worth $1,600 before tax. And then I had an additional realization that maybe I shouldn't have to convince myself of anything, and that I knew in my heart, at least for me, that it wasn't worth $1,600. Coming from a refurbished 27-inch Thunderbolt display, I couldn't really see the value. I know there's a 3K difference in resolution between the two monitors, but even then, I tried to find something while standing in that store. Anything that would make it okay for me to drop $1,600 for a 27-inch 5K monitor with 600 nits of brightness. I left that store knowing that I had to make a decision, and then I proceeded to cancel my order of the Studio Display. A few days later, after a lot of research and watching a lot of YouTube videos, I ordered the Samsung M8 from the Samsung website. From the time I ordered it to the time it arrived at my doorstep was a whopping 1 week wait, as opposed to the 4 to 5 weeks that Apple was estimating that it would take for the Studio Display to show up on my door. I ordered it in green, as green is my favorite color, and I was able to get an educational discount thanks to my wife's current graduate program. All in all, I got this monitor for more than half the price of the Studio Display, even after tax. I was excited to see what features, if any, the M8 would have better than the Studio Display, and also scared to see what features, if any, it would lack in comparison to the Studio Display. I'm here to tell you that as far as lacking, there's not that much. But first, let's talk about the good. 400 nits of brightness on a 4K screen in my tiny studio/den is more than enough. The picture quality is brilliant, and it connects to my M1 Max MacBook Pro via USB-C, which not only helps the MacBook send the signal to the monitor to display it, but the monitor actually charges the M1 Max MacBook Pro 16-inch without any issues. This was a giant concern. I didn't know if it would be able to handle it, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to get the Studio Display in the first place, but the Samsung M8 does the job just fine. There's an additional USB-C port that's good for charging devices and a mini HDMI slot for hooking your video game console if you so desire. As I've said, the picture quality is fantastic. When connecting the monitor via USB-C, I've noticed no lag whatsoever. I can move my mouse from left to right and it responds immediately. When I'm connecting via HDMI or the mini HDMI, there is a noticeable lag. It's very frustrating, and I've tried to see if I can figure out how to minimize that lag. If you know how to do that, please let me know in the comment section down below. The smart TV functions are kind of cool. Being able to watch TV on this with Disney Plus, HBO Max, Apple TV, all that stuff is actually pretty interesting. It's the first time that I've had a monitor that does that in this office where I can actually watch television content without having to go through my laptop is pretty cool. I also actually like having the remote control. It is something that you might figure is a little cumbersome, especially with the studio display. It just connects automatically when you connect it to your MacBook Pro or your Mac Mini or your Mac Studio or whatever. But I actually like the ability to control it remotely. I haven't used the ALEXA or Bixby options on this, but usually I just go to the home button and select whether or not I'm going to be using my laptop or if I'm going to be using the HDMI. Having that 5 extra inches of real estate is making a huge difference. I never thought that I would be this enamored with a 32-inch monitor, but lo and behold, here we are. It is a thing of beauty. Now I know people say that it doesn't scale properly, but I haven't really had any issues. Now I've scaled it up just a little bit where the text is not super tiny. The resolution is still fantastic, and I overall enjoy the quality that I am getting from this display. Now, let's talk about the one bad thing that I have noticed thus far. And mind you, I've only had this for a week. This isn't a proper review. This is just me talking about me choosing the M8 over the Studio Display and what my thoughts are so far. And if you're interested in me talking about the M8 more in detail, let me know so I can make another video in the near future where I do a proper review talking about all the features that this thing has. But I will say it has taken me a little bit of time getting used to this monitor. For example, the one not so good feature I was talking about, well, the speakers are nothing special. First and foremost, the speakers are behind the monitor, so it's kind of harder to hear. And plus, I don't want to blast it specifically because I cannot control the output audio of the monitor through the MacBook. So if I press the volume buttons up and down, nothing happens. You actually can't control the volume like that. So that is a downside. However, I do have my MacBook Pro connected to the Apollo Twin for Logic Pro sessions and stuff. So I have decided that the KRK speakers that I have connected to the Apollo Twin are in essence going to be my new computer monitors. Okay, future mirror here. So I wanted to show you an example of the sound difference between the Samsung M8 monitor, the M1 Max MacBook Pro, and then what it would sound like coming out of my KRKs using the Apollo Twin. That's not a fair comparison at all, I understand that, but I just wanted to give you an understanding of where my mindset is at and why I chose the setup that I did. So I'm going to show you a music test, and I'm going to show you a recent YouTube video that I did that the algorithm absolutely hated. So if you can check it out, I would greatly appreciate it. But here are those samples right now. Also, full disclosure, this was recorded on my iPhone 13 Pro. So what you're hearing is from the microphones of the iPhone. Nothing juiced up, nothing amplified, no special microphones at all. This is just how it sounds like in its natural environment. And no, it's not a MacBook Pro, which I think is really cool. It's not an iPad, which I think is also really cool. It's not even the iPhone 13 Pro, of which I'm filming this video on right now in cinematic mode, if you can't tell. I'm not talking about any piece of hardware at all. To me, the best product that Apple makes is its software, specifically the apps that are available in the Apple One subscription bundle. Okay, so really the real comparison is only the Samsung M8 to the MacBook Pro. We're not going to count the KRKs. I just wanted to show you what my setup sounds like. In comparison, the Samsung sounds fine, and you can crank the volume up to 100, I believe. You can go up to like 99, but it's just thin. There's really no mid or lows in there, whereas the MacBook Pro has a much beefier sound. So if you can run the sound out of the MacBook Pro, I would recommend that. But if you do have the option to run professional speakers like the KRKs or some Bose speakers, anything like that, then I think that that would be your best option. Okay, let's go back to the video. Each time I sit down for work, I find myself more and more satisfied with the Samsung M8 and the overall decision I made to go with the M8 over the Studio Display. And look, the Studio Display is a beautiful display. When I went to the store to look at it in person for a second time, I was blown away by the quality of the display, the aluminum casing, all that kind of stuff. It's an absolutely gorgeous display. But to me, forking up $1,600 before tax for that monitor, I just couldn't do it. There was something in me that just said to me, this isn't worth it. And so I think about it like this. If I really wanted the additional Thunderbolt ports, I can go to OWC and buy a dock for $200-300. Even at this price that I got after tax, let's just say $700, even you add $300 on top of that for the dock, you're still at $1,000 and you're still saving $600 in the process. And so this isn't a video to tell you that this monitor is better than the Studio Display. This isn't a video that tells you that you shouldn't spend $1,600 for the Studio Display. This isn't a video that tells you that you absolutely should avoid the Studio Display or you should follow in my footsteps. This is me telling you my thought process as to why I decided, you know what, even though I made the order for the Studio Display, it might not be for me because of these reasons. I might be okay with 4K as opposed to 5K, 400 nits of brightness as opposed to 600 nits of brightness, and having a different experience because I haven't purchased a Samsung product in a long time. And my experience thus far has been a positive one. Now, as I go and learn more about how to use this monitor properly and utilize all of its functions and features, I'll make more videos talking about that. But for now, this was my thought process of why I moved on from the Studio Display to the Samsung M8. That's it from me today. If you want to watch more content, you can check out this video right here where I have a hell of a time hooking up my M1 Mac Mini to my Thunderbolt display. It's a doozy of a video. I invite you to go check it out if you haven't yet. My name is Amir. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.